This is DNS 10005 final lecture. In this lecture, we will be summarizing all these things that you have been learning throughout the semester. I hope by viewing this video, it will help you all to understand the whole view, the whole thing about the thing that you've been learning. In this video, I will also give a lot of tips and tricks to answer your final exam. And whatever topic that I put inside this video, please study further and also understand the concept or understand how the function is used inside the network. So since we don't have class on the final lecture, I had the chance to go early in the morning to somehow having breakfast. So before further ado, I'm going to eat some breakfast first before continuing with your video creation.
Faster, Sifi.
No need to see. Start record already. Your voice will be inside the video.
Up to you.
So welcome to the network administration recap episode. This is your last lecture before your final exam, and then we are here with one of the student called Wilson, which is Winters inside our Discord channel.
Apa ni?
So this is basically networking oversimplified. So whatever I show over here to you, then it will go out into your final exam. All right. What is your final exam format? You have 15 questions on part A, which is 30 minutes, and then it will give you 15%. It's just like your test one. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I think.
I, J, K, O, M, M.
Now, it's like more than 4 options. It's 6 options in total. Part B is 10%, 5 short answered question, which includes matching questions, some IP calculation, and some theory stuff. In previous semester, Part A and Part B used to be 20% and 15%. However, because 10% of the mark is now allocated to your journal, then it is now reduced to 15 and 10%. For your Part C, it is still 25%. It's one of the, it is the most difficult part in your final exam. It can also be the easiest part in your final exam, depending on how you see it. 5 long answered question, design based question, 1 hour and 30 minutes is given to you all. And then this question is more like to apply something that more like common sense in a way, but it's not really common sense. So once you click the exam, the timer will start, and the exam time is on 13th of June, 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. You can start around 1 p.m. onward, so it will end at 4:15 p.m. The exam time is given to you to allocate, so there's nothing, what's called again? There's no other exam that will happen on that time, only this exam. So your Part A is available from 1 p.m. to 1:50 p.m. You can start at 1:20, you can start at 1:15 anytime that you want, but you have 30-minute time limit, and then it will end and submit whatever you have in the document in Canvas at 1:50 p.m. This time given to you like this, so you can have time to go to the toilet, you can have time to rest a bit or study last minute, anything that you want to do at that allocated time slot. And Part B is 1:50 p.m. until 2:40, and Part C is 2:40 until 4:15. So what do you need to know? So it's been 13 week, 14 week in TNE 10005. You need to know how is the hardware connected together, all right? Hardware connected together using things called mediums, such as wire, such as wireless, like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, copper wire, R45, and whatever cable that you have, connected to a switch, all right? Which is shown to you in the lab by using the virtual switch. Virtual switch is basically this thing in the middle over here, and you have different name for the virtual switch. Virtual switch names is to differentiate between the switches over here, for example, okay? So if you have one virtual switch, everything connected to one virtual switch, and then like you need to have IP address and subnet mask configured for it to communicate in a local area network. This same network or same subnet is identified by the IP address and the subnet mask given by you to your network, and the virtual switch need to have the same name, so it be inside this one network over here, as you can see. And if you want to communicate to devices outside of your network, which is different subnet or literally outside of your network, you will need a device called a router or router, whatever you want to call it. What else is the requirement? To configure the default gateway addresses of this device. For example, this PC over here, you configure the default gateway address, which is the address over here. And this PC right here, you configure the default gateway address, which is address over here for the router. And the router will route that two addresses together and says this address can go to this address. So the computer from here can communicate with the computer in the other network. So that's what at least you need to know. IP addresses, different subnet, how to connect stuff together, how router is used to communicate to different network. Any question? If you have any question, I don't know.
No question lah.
All right. So, IP, subnet mask, default gateway, what are those? So, device must be in the same subnet to communicate in the same local area network. For example, your subnet 1, your network 1, basically in one house. It's one network, one subnet and everything. Thus, a minimum IP address and a subnet mask must be configured at a minimum for them to communicate. All right, IP address and subnet mask. To communicate with other subnet, a router must be used. A router must be used in the middle over here. So open system interconnection is very important for you to know about OSI layer after finishing this course, alright? Anything related to network, OSI layer is the standard reference model that is used for devices to communicate to each other. For the first three layers, there is a physical layer which also can be used by wireless transmitter to transmit signal in binary of 0 and 1. As you can see in the chat a few nights ago, then we communicate by 0 and 1s to communicate certain things. It might be important for y'all. Some of those 0 and 1s sent in the chat channel might be important, might be not, okay?
Yeah.
Alright. Data link layer, which is layer 2, works for devices in a local area network, which only communicate with devices in LAN, right? Local area network. While it needs a network layer when communicating with devices outside of your local area network, a switch and frame is in the data link. While you are in the network layer, you will need a router. So switch is in data link layer, and then what the thing is named in data link layer is called frame. Data link layer only communicates the MAC addresses, the whatever 00.0a.fc and so on. Those like is your MAC addresses. And network layer uses IP addresses and whatever data over here, it is called packets. So IP addresses, as you can see, 192.1 blah 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 .0.0/24 and so on. So do you know what else operates in this layer? Then that will be important for you. For example, in data link layer is something called hub, bridges in physical layer, I think. So those devices is important for you to know. It might be asked for you later on. Next one is transport layer, session layer, and presentation layer and application layer. Transport layer defines data segment and numbers them at the source, so the data will not lost while the data is sent to you, to make sure like is this data the first puzzle, second puzzle, third puzzle, so you can combine them together and make sure the one that's sent to you look properly. So layers that make sure the segment delivered correctly. We have TCP and UDP stuff under this layer. TCP, you don't need to know as much about TCP and UDP, but TCP is where the other computer will acknowledge they receive certain segment, and UDP, they just receive as much data as possible and think about the combining the data later on. In session layer, it manages session between the user. For example, the layer will synchronize multiple web sessions such as banking stuff, voice and video. So our voice and the video right here will synchronize properly in web conferences such as Discord. Presentation layer, which provide the data format info such as JPEG, MP3, blah, 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 and so on. And application layer is the one that basically contain all this and put it to your face. All right. TCP IP model. We normally use TCP IP model in the modern internet, but the OSI layer previously is still widely used to help visualize and communicate how the network operates to assist in troubleshooting any networking problem, layer by layer. For example, this one you have a really simple layer, but let me see how to show you all. Okay, for example, you have a TCP IP conceptual layer over here. We have network interface instead of the OSI model, physical and data link. If you only have a network interface, if you want to troubleshoot some problem, you don't know whether it is the MAC address problem or is it the not IP addresses. Yeah, IP addresses problem, subnet mask problem, or the physical wire problem itself, the physical connection or the wireless connection itself. That's why we still use the OSI reference model to troubleshoot from the bottom up. When you want to see whether your connection is, which part of the OSI layer model that your connection is not working. The TCP IP model is the simplified version of those, and each of its layers are referenced from the OSI layer. Layer 1 and 2 is from network access layer in the TCP model. Layer 3 of OSI model is the internet layer. Layer 4 is the transport layer. 5, 6, 7 is the application layer in the TCP IP model. In TCP IP model, if your application want to use TCP IP model, they will need to use a specific ports and specific socket. You need to know this stuff. Ports are the logical connection, which means not physical connection, provided by the TCP IP, provided by the TCP or the UDP protocols at the transport layer over here. For use by protocols in the upper layer of the OSI model, for use by this thing over here. These ports number are stored in the header of the packet to determine what protocol of the incoming traffic should be directed to, so the data can flow properly to its destination. These are some of the important protocols that you need to know. For example, 25 is SMTP, Simple Man Retrieval Protocol, HTTP, port number 80 for TCP and UDP, and blah, 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 blah. You need to remember this. Okay. So, what is physical and logical address? Physical address operates at layer 2. MAC address is what we call a physical address because it is what your network card or your Wi-Fi card born with. It's like not the name of the Wi-Fi card, but it's the address burned inside that Wi-Fi card or your network card. Of course, there is always a way to spoof those addresses. Why you from me? If basically, like, you can spoof those addresses, but normally for normal users, they cannot change that address. That address is fixed to your hardware. For logical address, which operates is OSI level 3 networking, network layer. IP address is a logical address. You set this and ensure it is correct. Whatever subnet you want to do, it is correct. This is like the nickname for the MAC address. So you have a MAC address and then the IP address pointing to that MAC address. And subnet mask is paired with an IP address to check which subnet or network that IP address is from, like which area, which houses, which country, and what you want to say. So how to check if the IP address belong to certain subnet or this IP address belong to different subnet? You use the ANDing method. The translating everything to binary, and then you compare the binary using ANDing method. Okay, you need to know that at least. And do you know which IP can be used or not? You need to check lecture 2. It is quite important for you. They will ask you which is the limited IP addresses, which one you can use at home, which one cannot be used, multicast broadcast, universal broadcast, APIPA addresses, what else addresses there is? Yeah, those kind of addresses you need to learn. Any question from you, Wilson?
Tak ada.
Okay,
Semua
let's
sui-sui.
All right. So we always been going through IP addressing every time. Maybe it's just the important stuff. So 192.10.10.12/25. 4 new branches. Tell me how to subnet this. You wanna try, or should I just?
You should just, yeah.
All right.
Malas betul.
First thing first, you have 192.10. As you can see, my iPad battery have problem. Whoa, what's the chill? My iPad battery have problems, so I don't have my pen and screen right now. So that's why I'm using my mouse to write this.
Use the Osu tablet lah.
I don't have an Osu tablet.
Asyik.
I gave it away to my cousin because I have an iPad.
Aduh. Okay.
First, you need to do ending method, which is to change this to binary, and then you change this to binary. For example, this one in binary is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 24. 25. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is in binary. So change this one in binary. And then you will get 192.10.10.0 as your network address. You need to find this first before you try to do the subnetting. You need 4 new branches. So 2 power of 2 equal to 4. Meaning you need to borrow 2 subnet bits over here. You borrow 2. So the 25 will become /27. Now you have the subnet mask of 255.255.225.224. So 2256 minus 224 is a method for you to find the network hop. You will get 32. All right, so your network hop is 32. And then your first subnet will be 192.10.10.0/27. Your second subnet will be 192.10.32/27. All right. If you see over here, it's more than /24, which is the last octet. Whatever network hop that you have over here, you need to add it at the last octet over here to find the next subnet. So the subnet tree will be .64, and then the next one will be
Allow your maths.
96. There you go. All right, thank you for assisting my quick math is really bad. But yeah, that is your subnetting over here. All right. If you don't know how to do this, please try to do this. Especially this because you might get trickier question in your final exam. DHCP. So once you have those IP addresses just now, you will have to set the IP for every devices that you want to connect to the network, right? Do you want to do that? No, right? So this is what DHCP is used for. The server or your router that may act as a DHCP at home will offer you IP addresses to lease, aka to borrow for set amount of time. This lease come from DHCP scope. DHCP scope. But what if you want to have an addresses in the middle of the scope to be offered by anyone, to be offered to anyone? You can use the thing called DHCP exclusion. What about reservation and other stuff offered by the DHCP option, the router IP addresses, printer, or more? So you need to know that stuff as well inside the DHCP topics. Next, you have your DNS topic. So now you have IP addresses for your computer just now. All those IP addresses which have DHCP stuff in the end, right? What if your web server have the IP address of 100.10.10.10 as its IP address, and when people want to visit your website, they won't have to type 100.10.10.10 every time in the browser to access the website, right? So this is why we need to have DNS, domain name system. It basically translate the IP address, the 100.10.10.10 to a certain URL name, for example, zqq.com or something, right? Or it can also do the reverse by using a certain type of record to change the IP address to the URL name or URL name to the IP address, vice versa. It is also used to locate domain controllers. That is why when you do your lab, you cannot join the domain when you don't have the preferred DNS configured in your PC1 as usual. It is to translate the swing.local domain name into the IP address of that domain controller that you wanted to join. They have 3 different zones over here. The primary DNS zone is the DNS server that is basically the primary DNS server. You can write record to this server, you can delete record in this server, you can delete and whatever and so on. Each domain will require at least one primary zone, while the secondary zone is basically the copy of the primary zone or other secondary zone. It's the read-only copy of another server, the master server. The record done is called zone transfer, the transfer of the record DNS record from slave server to the master server. Don't quote me on that. It is actually called slave server and the master server.
Yeah.
Not me. There's like last few years there's also petition about not calling that anymore. They want the whole IT people to change how you address this stuff. In the news, you can check it. Who's that?
That's Melkor. Chungkit.
Yes. Don't quote me on that. It's always what it's called. Okay.
Faster, go on.
Okay, while the subzone only copies some part of the two zone. You can copy some part of the secondary zone or the primary zone. You use the subzone so you can hide some server in your network if you want to show the DNS record to the public. Okay, so you need to remember to study the type of DNS record. It is really important to you. Really, really important, meaning it will go out to your exam. The question is over there. What record is this? What record is this? Okay, so check out the lecture on DNS and what DNS record there is. Any question?
Sini tak ada.
Ada.
Sisi.
PMBOK, Project Management Body of Knowledge. You might think it is unimportant because it's in your lecture 2 and your lecture 3. But this question is inside your design question. It is probably around 7 marks out of...
Apa ni?
I mean...
Why you put it in?
Symbol AU require me to do so.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's the design question, right?
Okay.
So you need to know how to apply this to certain scenario, to know which effect and how one can fix that thing. That is how you can be a good project manager or get good marks in your exam, because this is what it is required. I don't know why. Area 1 is the one that will combine the other area together. It's called Project Integration Management, which involves the coordinating of the other PMBO. Okay, involve identifying and communicating with the project key stakeholder. What is the project key stakeholder? The TELOS. That is really important to you as well. The technical, the economic, the legality, and so on. TELOS. Area 2 is the project scope management. It's basically to teach you how to stay in the scope they are given to you. All right. So if you have one scope, you try to stay over there as much as possible, because if you change the scope, it will also change the time and the cost of your project. Okay. So the time management is for you to manage your time. For example, to make some to-do lists, or the time management will get affected if your project require more time, or if your employee don't know what to do. If your employee don't know what to do, it will also affect the cost, which is to train your employee. It will also affect the human resource, which to hire someone to train your employee, and so on. You need to know how this is applied. That is why I tell you just now, Part C is somewhat common sense, but you need to apply the PMBOK model over here to know what to do and how to mitigate that situation. The part 2 of the PMBOK is the quality management. Quality is the eyes of beholder, and you need to ensure that the product that you did or the project that you did is enough quality to your client, to yourself, to the other customers as well, or to your other key stakeholder, your other stakeholder. There's difference between key stakeholder and stakeholder as well. You need to know that. And then how to ensure the product is quality. You need to test, and more testing. Some of the quality assurance, such as ISO 9001 and so on, will also do some quality check for you. For example, the NIOSH, the NIOSH will do the face masking like N95 and so on. Those are the NIOSH standard. Human resource, which is your HR, according to your budget and time, and how to do your project completely. You need to recruit people and more employees sometimes, all right? project communication. You need to know how to communicate, who to communicate, and when to communicate, and so on. Risk management, how to manage risk is if everything happened. You need to also include the costs inside your risk management, just in case you lose something, you break some project, you break some hardware. Yeah, the one is also under risk management. And producer management, which do the changes accepted by the both side. Is it the recommended by their system, and can you accommodate their system? For example, you only work with Windows machine old so far, and then suddenly your client have a Macintosh, right? That is area number 9. So, how to apply PMB? Okay, let's try this question. Due to the recent pandemic, you are required to use the QR code for customer data log. Upon entry, their body temperature need to be taken by using a professional infrared device. However, none of your employees knows the rules for the data logging and how to use the temperature reader. Identify the PMB knowledge areas that are affected by this change and justify why do you think it is the most affected areas. Anyone? You want to see?
Just say the answer lah.
Okay, try one for me.
What try one?
Give me one.
Apa knowledge? Computer knowledge kah?
PMB okay what?
Walao.
Walau what? Give you like example. Time, cost, scope, integration, human resource, communication.
Human resource lah.
Yeah, explain why.
Cause got what is it called? Apa to? Cause got employees ma involved.
So? Okay, salah. So in this kind of question, you need to answer it as detailed as possible. The more detail you answer the question, the more mark you have. You can say one paragraph for each of the point. If you need to if you need 2 area, you need to give 2 paragraph. If you need 3 area, you need to give 3 paragraph. It's under design question part C. So if you ask to state and justify 2, you need to do 2 but more detail. For example, in this case, the PMBOK that will be affected will be the cost, as it will require to purchase the infrared temperature device and also implementing the system for the QR code, the software as well. You will probably need to hire or pay the current employee extra for the extra job given to them, which lead to the human resource area of the PMBOK, which you need to train your employee how to use the devices and choose or employ new people to train the rest of the employees. Since the question says none of your employee knows about it. Next could be probably communication area in the PMBOK, as the information need to be communicated to the employee on the new regulation, as the regulation might change from time to time. The employee need to be updated with the latest regulation. They also will need to communicate to another stakeholder in the area, which is, for example, your customers or your other employees, to ensure they understand the data logging is required in case they are worried about their privacy. Of course, there are more things that you can add in here just to make it more details, and that's how you explain in the PMBOK area. Next. So, it's Active Directory Revision now. Any question from both of you?
So last question, right? You just now what you mentioned, agak like this. If you mention like this, then can get almost full marks already, right?
Depending on the
like what you said just now.
Yeah.
Depends on just now that question, lah. Yeah. Okay, can already. Okay, lah. I thought
common sense, right?
Say like what? Yeah, common sense, yeah.
But you need to know which area and what the area is for, lah.
It's okay, lah. Slide open, easier.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, Active Directory Revision is one of the most important thing in your, basically what we teach inside this course, which is what we call the domain. We have forest, which is a collection of domain that share the same forest root domain, global catalog, and also schema. The DC, the domain controller, must be the global catalog server. It's like that automatically if you only have one DC in your forest. Let me see. This is what they call a forest, Facebook Inc. forest. We have facebook.com. the child domain developer.facebook.com. We have another domain called instagram.com, and the child domain of instagram.com is help.instagram.com, and we have a whatsapp.com over here. And this arrow over here is what we call a transitive trust, meaning they trust each other. They can share stuff with each other. If the trust is only one-sided, then this one only trusts this one. But this one is not important for you this semester. It's only important for you to inside next semester, enterprise networking, blah, blah, blah. So domain is one logical administrative unit. A parent domain can have a child domain. For example, the instagram.zkq.com is a child domain. But do you know that the child domain can also have a child domain? For example, food.instagram.zkq.com, and we use the .local usually, so it will not disturb the other domain name or your DNS in your PC. So .local is used for local use domain, like .com is how for commerce. So basically what we are doing right now is the website or the file access thing. The domain that you've been doing, the swin.local, is actually like can translate directly to swin.com, like swinburne.com and so on. Just that we put it .local so it will not disturb your DNS, all right? A tree is a collection of domain. One parent domain with all the child domain is counted as one tree. This and this is one tree. This and this is one tree. This is another tree. So this 1, 2, and 3 trees over here. How about this? This is that. This is one tree. This is one tree. You see, child domain have another child domain. So organizational unit is a container to apply your group policy object, not the folder or file access permission, which we can discuss later about the GPO. So why are we using domain? This is important. Do you know that the users of each of these master roles over there as well? What is the other master roles that you have? For example, the server which this role is maintained or propagate changes, or the other DC domain is called the schema. The schema maintains the schema of the AD. The server, which is the role, will maintain the propagate changes of all other DC domain. The domain name, naming masters. I mean, do you guys need to know this? Maybe not. Right. So why are we using domains? To share files and folder with the rest of the company, to host websites, to control the user access of data and file permission throughout the company, to set settings in the user and computer that are connected to the network. And then in NTFS, there is a user and computer account. The user account is the one that you created for the user, and the computer account is the account of the computer that is connected to the domain. Why is it user account and computer account important? Because user account and computer account is what that you will need to do your GPO with. Do you want the GPO to affect user account? Do you want the GPO to affect computer account? It's based on that what you need to do. All right. So this is the real life example over here. This is the OU to group whatever people that you want to do. You group people in the OU, but the people you need to group in the global group, global local group, and so on. So you need to know how do you share files in domain network. You need to use the share permission. Apply the share setting, everyone full control. Then the NTFS permission, which is your security permission, is based on the required permission that given to you. The domain local group is the one that you need to assign the permission in the NTFS setting. So basically inside the security setting, you assign the DL group instead of the G group. Then a global group is member of the domain local group. So basically G, and then DL, then the file. You assign the permission to the DL group, and then the member over here inside one of this group. So this member inside this global group. This global group is inside the domain local group. So whatever people, whatever group inside this domain local group can access this folder right here. User is a member of the global group, so that is your IGDLA. If you have multi-forest domain, how is your group strategy should be, and what should be done? This is really important for another Part C tips that you need to design. It's just like a skill exam, but it's more than that. It's more than one domain. All right. The group in NTFS, that's local group, which is used by the non-administrator to share resources in a local computer in the work group or a domain. We will not use local group in this network admin. Don't worry about that. We just have to worry about this tree. Global group is used to group users and computer accounts from the local domain. Domain local used to provide access to resources in the local domain, and universal used to group global group from multiple domain. Really important for you to know. If you don't watch this video, you're probably gonna screw it up. Any
How
question?
do people know?
How do people know what?
How do people know what you said just now if you don't watch this video?
That's why you should watch this video. I will post the video and then you all don't watch. It's your fault, lad. Okay, just now we have share permission. This one applies permission to files or folder when it's shared with the network. You need to have share permission configured if you want to share file to the network. It does not apply to the user who log on locally. So only NTFS permission apply to user that log on locally. Share permission applies to everyone in the network. So basically, whatever group, whatever DL that you put inside the share permission will apply to the people in the network. Must be applied when you want to share something with devices in your domain or your network. The only way to secure files or folders in FAT32 format this is the only way you do it, because NTFS permission, the security thingy, only work for NTFS formatted devices. Usually applied as full control, but the permission application is controlled by the NTFS permission, which is this thing. Read this by yourself if you want to know it. But if you ask to apply certain things, for example, the user need to delete the folder, you need to have modify permission, or if the user need to modify the folder permission or take ownership of the stuff inside, you need something called full control. Right? Modify is for delete folder, perform other actions, and blah, 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 and so on. In your skill exam, it asks you to give full control to this, give read-write access to this, but in your final, it will not be asked like that. It will ask you based on this and this, I guess. Right?
Nice drawing.
Thank you. So in the NTFS Inheritance, other than the combination of the group, SCL permission, not to be confused with the GPO Inheritance, is a different thing. NTFS also have its own inheritance system. For example, txt.txt is located inside a folder called bool. Bool is a folder located under a folder called Italia. Alright, Italia. If a user A has full control of the folder Italia, a user A will have inherited full control, inherited FC, permission toward the folder bool over here and the file inside this, which is the txt.txt. However, if the folder Italia has read-only for the user A, so read-only, RO, folder A, while folder B is assigned with full control to the user A, the inherited deny will override the explicit allow. Let me see. The folder bool will assign full control for user A. The inherited deny was overridden by the explicit allow. So basically, like just now, if you have RO over here, so this is the inherited read, right, over here. But since we assign full control to the folder here, and then we have the explicit allow permission, the full control is now. So the user A will have full control. Yeah, the lecture 7 have more of this stuff, inheritance, so go ahead and view it. All right. Any question before I go to the sample?
Tak dah. Terus proceed.
Nako?
There's nothing. Go.
Alright. First sample right here. Swin Limited is based in Swinburne. It has expanded to include operation in China. Now it has two domains, swin.com domain and cn.swin.com domain. You need to grant access to all IT support staff across the domain to the admin_tools shared folder in the main domain, while IT support staff in China domain will need to have full access to the CN IT folder domain. So we have two, right?
Oh,
For
wow.
us. What do you mean by wow?
What apa wow? Wow.
Uh,
Swin LTD Forest. Yes, nice drawing. I know.
Yes.
We have swin.com and cn.swin.com.
Susah.
All right, transitive trust. There you go.
Oh my god.
Shh, don't think so much about it. So we have IT support staff in all domains. So basically GIT. Okay, just name it GIT. Okay, it's really hard to see. Okay, GIT.
Tapa. Understandable.
All right, GIT. All right, GIT it is. All right, and then we have admin tool shared folder in the main domain, which is over here. Admin. Damn, that's so bad. I'm gonna name it AT lah. AT shared folder in the main domain. So the GIT need full access. So you need the EDL ATFC. That's your domain local. Okay, GIT. Is it part of the DL? Not yet, because you need to assign the IT support staff from other domain to have access to this AT folder, the admin tool folder. So this one, assign access to this DL, and then you will need to have a universal IT group. GIT part of the universal IT group. GIT over here is part of this universal IT group. And this universal IT group is part of that DL group over here. So we have user over here, user over here. So we have IGUDLA for our multi-domain stuff. So for the cn.swin.com, you need full access to their own CNIT folder. CNIT folder. And the usual IGDLA. DLCN part over here, and then this give permission over here. Something like that. Yes, nice drawing. I know. Thank you.
Totally can see what you're doing.
Totally can understand why.
Totally can.
Totally can see.
Comprehensible.
So, GPO revision. So why do you use GPO? To centralize management and configuration of the system in your network, to remove access to the certain important function, to harden security, to enforce complexity of password, audit any object access. It applies to computer or user setting in the organizational unit. User setting in the GPO will stick to the user account. So any computer in the domain that the user log on to, the setting will apply, and the computer setting will stick to the devices. Any user log into it, the setting will apply. So you remember there's a user setting and a computer setting inside GPO. You need to know what do you mean by what? There's user setting and computer setting inside GPO. User setting will apply to the user account. Computer setting will apply to the computer account. Got it?
Because I cannot process.
And why do you use GPO? To control some of the stuff that the user or the computer can use. Okay, the important part is the in order of precedence. Whatever child OU, if you set anything in the child OU, right? For example, GPO, okay, I think you know this lah. No access to task manager in the OU. And then child OU, yes, task manager. So whatever inside the child OU can access task manager because it have explicit allow, even though it have inherited deny. You need to know about this. And also you need to study the 3 ways to filter GPO. It's very important. I'm lazy to do it. And there are tools that can troubleshoot the GPO, like using the modeling to see which one that applies, linking and unlinking the GPO. So you can see which one is the problematic GPO, and blocking inheritance. For example, you can block inheritance in the child OU, so it will not receive any setting from the previous GPO. You can also enforce For example, in the parent OU, so whatever child OU will have to listen to the parent if you use enforce, even though they block the inheritance. Any question? No?
Tak ada.
Tak ada. Next.
Continue.
Defense in depth. Another thing that you need to know how to apply by using a bit of common sense. Defense in depth is a few layers of security to defend your network from unwanted access. It's all about the balance. You don't need to just put everything, you just, for example, you have a house lock, you have a CCTV, you have another lock in your house, and then you suddenly have fingerprint authentication, and suddenly you have like retina and like authentication just to enter your room. No. As long as it is secure enough to you, it is enough for your house. You need to justify why is it enough, and then that's about it. Okay. So similar to the PMBOK, the example of the things that you will be to ask is like how to secure certain stuff by using the DID model. So how to secure your house by using this model. Policy and awareness to educate the people in the house that no unwanted and unknown people will be allowed in the house, and physical security to use lock or a CCTV for extra monitoring device. So you need to layer solution, justify using common sense and probably some, technicality over here. You can learn more inside the lecture. There's like more stuff over there, what you can do in certain layer. So finally, what else is important? Well, not to make the video too long because I'm lazy right now. I want to go swim. So I admit it, I want to go swim, okay? So make sure you need to know about read. Combining of this, read. IPv6 basic, what is IPv6? What you can do in IPv6, the addresses in IPv6, or the binary data that I sent to you in the Discord chat. Some cloud computing, okay? And these are really important other than your IP address. And as questions are in the pool, so everyone will get different questions. So you can pray to any god that you believe. So you get easy question because these questions are most likely gacha.
Gacha bit.
Alright, so thank you for the semester. That is all from me. And good luck and do your best in your exam. Hopefully all of you get passed. I know some of you didn't get passed, but let's try your best, right? See you all next time. Bye.